Good morning and welcome to the xarvio webinar. This is our third webinar in our series looking at xarvio functionality in the UK, and my name is Louis Wells, the commercial lead for xarvio here locally. With me this morning, we've got a couple of other speakers. We've got Luke Pollard, who works closely with me as the implementation lead for xarvio here. And also we've got a guest speaker from the global team, Bjorn Keep, leads the agronomy team for xarvio globally, and he's going to be sharing some insights and what's going on behind the scenes with some of our technology and how we drive it forward. So today our topic is all around integrated pest management and sustainability. We're going to be looking at how digital technology and xarvio technology can help support these important topics and really showcase some of that innovation for you this morning. Integrated pest management is of course a really important topic and a really wide topic as well, you know, thinking of all the different decisions that we're making as we plant and grow crops throughout the year. But there is some great functionality and some great tools available already to us within Field Manager and also our scouting tool that can really help make the best decisions at the right times. So moving forward to our agenda, I'm going to do a brief introduction to xarvio Field Manager before handing on to my colleague Luke, who's going to show us xarvio in action and how it's supporting integrated pest management and decision making on farm. We're going to look at Spray Timer, our decision support tool, looking at disease and pest modeling in terms of when we need to make crop protection inputs. He's going to mention Zone Spray and our variable rate application technology. We did touch upon Zone Spray a fair bit in our second webinar, so do look back at that one too if VRA is a particular interest for you. He's going to mention our buffer zone tool, which we have in development, which supports products that have aquatic buffer zones and making that process really easy and simple from a spray operator's perspective. We've got some analytics features that Luke wanted to cover off. You know, how can you see what's going on in your fields and on your farm and compare and contrast different approaches and what you're doing. And just we're also going to have a quick look at the xarvio scouting app. Really a great tool to be using to monitor pests and record you know, what you're seeing, you know, and whether you're meeting thresholds for different things, etc. So we're also going to have a quick look there too before handing on to Bjorn Keep, who is going to talk about big data and agronomic modeling within xarvio and all of that complex work that goes along in the background to make these tools available and to really make sure that the insights we're delivering are timely and correct. As usual, we'll then head to a Q&A session. So do post your questions into the chat. The chat box is just on the right-hand side there, hopefully next to the window where you can see me. We'll hopefully have both Bjorn and Luke and myself available to take questions there. Good. So without further ado, I will kick off, and here is a brief intro to Field Manager. So you can see that xarvio is a global tool and a global digital farming brand. Every country that is purple here on this map is a country where xarvio is active with either one of its products. Where we've got the lighter pink, those are markets with both the Field Manager and the scouting tool. Where we've got the darker purple, that's where just the xarvio scouting tool is currently available. But this map is growing and you know, there are new markets coming on board with xarvio technology all of the time. Our crop focus is all around the key cropping systems around the world, and the good news is that fits quite nicely to us in the UK, with cereals a key focus, oil seeds, maize or corn, and soybean down there at the bottom, which perhaps doesn't quite fit so well, that the majority do. That doesn't mean that other crops aren't important for xarvio. We do have other models that are in the pipeline as well, but those ones there are really the kind of key focus. We're really looking to bring digital technology to those major cropping systems around the world. You can see the numbers there for Europe on the right hand side. So these are growing all of the time, as more farmers are looking to see how digital can support their activities. So 45,000 farms now within the xarvio Field Manager platform, over 200,000 fields and over 300 million hectares. So these numbers are growing and building all of the time. And perhaps just to zoom in and focus a little bit more on us in the UK, we're now in our second season with Field Manager in the UK. Launched back at Lama at the beginning of 2020, and as of a week or so ago, we now have over 2,500 farms. Looking at Field Manager and looking at the benefits it can bring in terms of supporting decision making. You can see it's a crop production system supporting decision making all the way from seeding to harvest, and the images there on the right hand side show how it's cloud based and can be used on the web, but there's also a smartphone app, so you can get all of the insights within xarvio, both on your phone when you're in the field, but also back in the office on your computer. This is a nice slide that just showcases all of the different functionality within xarvio Field Manager. We're not going to touch upon all of these today. Luke is going to just showcase a few. But you can see here, biomass information we're taking from satellites, and we're utilizing that information to create maps that can support the positioning of your inputs on farm, be it for variable rate nutrition and fertilization, be it for variable rate crop protection with our zone spray feature, or also variable rate seeding, putting the optimum dose of seed in different parts of the field as well. Spray timer is one that Luke is going to focus on, so I won't touch upon that too much, but that's all around our modeling, both for growth stage, disease and pest risk, helping you to time your inputs optimally. And then I think digital is also around efficiency savings. So, sharing and collaborating on the farm, sharing the account with everybody that's working on the farm, so you can all look at the same information and have access to the same information in one place. And of course, documenting what you're doing and the decisions you're making. Brilliant. So with that short intro, I will now hand over to Luke to take us through some of the functionality in more detail and how it supports from an integrated pest management perspective. Thank you, Luke. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Louis. Now I want to highlight to you some of the features within the xarvio portfolio in the UK. So including features from the xarvio Field Manager system, but I'm also going to have a look at the xarvio scouting tool as well. So I'm going to specifically talk about how our data-driven approach and the features that we build and how the features that we build can support with your on-farm decision-making around integrated pest management and sustainability. So firstly, we're going to focus on the xarvio Field Manager system, but in order for Field Manager to provide the agronomic insights and alerts, which Louis just shared with us, it needs to understand some basic information about your farm. And this video shows how easy it is to set up an account and how easy it is to add your fields. So really basic, simple information to create your account. And then once you've created your account, you'll be invited to add fields to your farm. There's a few different ways that you can bring in your fields. So you can use shape files, firstly, and you can bring in shape files into the system, so all your fields are added automatically. You can also bring across shape files wirelessly using the My John Deere link. And you can also, if you don't have shape files, you can also select your fields from the map using the predefined field boundary function. So you can very easily select several fields from the map, and then you can rename the fields really easily as well. And then you can edit the shape of your field as well, depending on how accurate you want to be. So you can bring it right into the field boundaries. So now once you've added your field, the next step is to add your cropping information. So Field Manager knows where your field is, so it understands the location and therefore the relevant accurate weather data for that crop. But now it needs to understand what crop is in the field. So we add information around what the crop is, so winter wheat in this example, the variety from a list of all of the registered varieties in the UK. So Field Manager understands the variety specific factors, so disease susceptibility, for example, or how quick it is to mature. And this all goes into the crop modelling. And you can also enter information such as your previous crop and your tillage system. So what's really important to enter is your accurate seeding dates, as this kickstarts the agronomic modelling and provides the key basis for the growth stage tracking and forecasting. So once you've added all this information, so information about your fields and your crops, Field Manager can then start to provide these agronomic insights and alerts. So if we move on to the next slide, and coming to the first feature within Field Manager that I wanted to highlight. So this is the spray timer feature. And this feature provides alerts for the optimal timing for your spray applications. So xarvio uses agronomic data modeling to provide this application timing alerts. And these alerts are unique to your field in your specific situation and are based on the information that you enter for your field, which we've just seen. So Spray Timer provides insights such as growth stage tracking and forecasting for each of your crops and fields, and also disease risk scores for cereals and pest risk scores for oilseed rape. And these scores indicate when a crop is more likely to be susceptible to a disease or pest, and not necessarily that that disease is in the crop currently. So using these field-specific insights, Spray Timer can provide alerts for the optimal application timing for crop protection, and therefore you can apply your fungicide in a more sustainable way with an approach based on your specific field and weather conditions and the pressure on your crop. So also as a user, xarvio Field Manager works with you, taking on board the observations you make during field walking. Like the current growth stage of the crop and the current in-field disease pressure. So once you enter these observations within the system, Field Manager will take them into consideration and they'll have an influence on the data modeling, allowing you to further tailor the agronomic insights to your field situation. So now I've explained what Spray Timer is and how it works and what it does. What I wanted to do is show you what it looks like within the live system. So I'm going to leave my slides now and go to my web browser. So this is an example field that I wanted to show you. You can see the xarvio Field Manager system on the web, and we can see this field here. And this field is actually based at Rawcliffe Bridge in South Yorkshire, which is a BSF sustainability demo site, which I'm sure a few of you have been to and visited in the past. And in this example, we can see a crop of KWS barrel that was drilled late September. And we can already see some of the Spray Timer insights coming through. So we're quite near the beginning of the season, coming up to the end of March. But we can see that the current growth stage predicted by Field Manager is growth stage 29. So it's got a lot of tillers and it's going to start with stem elongation at the beginning of April. And then we can also see the disease risk scores as well. And the overall disease risk score for this field is yellow, meaning it's medium. But we can also see what diseases are driving this score specifically. And as this crop is only at growth stage 29, only a couple of the diseases are currently active, being pound dew mildew and yellow rust. But the disease pressure is climbing, and we can see that Field Manager estimates that the risk level for these diseases is currently medium, as it's yellow. And as a user, if you're interested in this crop data modeling and you want to understand a bit more how it works behind the scenes, you can actually click the More Field Details button to have a look at what's driving these agronomic insights. So now we're within the field details, we can see what's behind the scenes, and we can see the timeline at the top, and we can look at each day. And we can actually have a look at the weather data that field manager thinks was experienced on that field for each day. And then we can have a look at the disease risk in more detail. So we can open up the disease tab and we can have a look at powdery mildew and yellow rust, which were both activated on the 15th of March. And we can actually see that for powdery mildew, for example, there's been lots of predicted infection events, which is why the disease risk is higher. And for yellow rust, there have been some infection events as well. And originally the disease risk was low, but more recently it's climbed up to a medium risk for disease. So what I want to do now is actually show you what the spray timer feature looks like for later on into the season. So I'm going to flick to this demo here. And now we're looking at a crop of Skyfall, which was drilled at the beginning of October. And we're actually at the beginning of May now in this example. So we can see that the crop is at growth stage 32. So looking at around T1 timing, and we can actually see that all of the diseases are now active, and they all have a risk score next to them. The overall disease risk for this crop is high because the traffic light system is red, and we can see that it's Septoria tritici driving this overall disease risk. So now we can see that the overall disease risk for this field is red, meaning that it's likely to be susceptible to disease. And we can also see that it's around growth stage 32. So as a user, you may now consider a T1 application, going to walk that field with your agronomist, for example, and deciding what application is required. Great, so now I'm going to come back to my slides and carry on to the next feature that I wanted to talk about. So to complement the spray timer feature, there's also the zone spray feature, and this ensures that you can use the optimal application dose for every part of your field by utilizing variable application technology. So Field Manager provides biomass map data and biomass imagery from satellites for each of your fields throughout the season, and in turn it analyzes this biomass image to determine which areas of the field are growing more successfully, which areas less successfully for whatever reason. Maybe it's high disease pressure, or it was waterlogged at some point earlier on in the season. So depending on this, and depending on the biomass, the field is automatically split into different field zones based on the development of the crop. So you as a user can then decide what application rates you want to apply in each of the field zones, of course within legal limits. And for example, you may choose for a fungicide application to apply a higher rate of fungicide where your crop has more biomass and more green leaf area, and taking some of that dose rate from the lower biomass zones and reallocating it to the higher biomass zones. So you can create these application maps for fungicide, like I've said, but you can also do this for seeding and fertilizer as well. You can then upload these maps into your terminal via USB or wirelessly with the My John Deere link, and your terminal will then read these maps. So using both the spray timer feature with the agronomic modeling and the zone spray feature with variable application, this means that your applications will be applied in the most sustainable and effective way, applying them at the most optimal time and also tailored to exactly where it's needed in that field and crop. So moving on to the next slide, I wanted to share with you another functionality within Field Manager that allows you to explore your field information and field maps in more detail, so you know exactly what's going on in the different areas of your crop. And this can then allow you to make the best decisions for your crop. So within the Analytics tab, on Field Manager. You can upload your variable seeding maps from your drill, and you can also upload your yield maps from your combine. You can compare these maps then side by side with each other, and you can also bring in the biomass imagery provided by xarvio. Additionally, you can also add management zones for further map analysis, and that's actually what I'm going to show you an example of now by going across to the live platform again. So this is a field called Barnfield, which was drilled a bit later on, actually. So it was a late drilled crop of Skyfall in mid-December, and and what I'm going to show you actually is the field management functionality at the bottom of this page, where you can add additional bits of information, management information to the field, such as management zones, AB lines, field entrances, for example. But we're just going to have a look at management zones for now. So now I can view the zones, the management zones that I've already added, and add additional zones as well. So in this example, I've already added a trial tramline. So I'm putting a trial across this tramline, where, for example, you may want to test a different application strategy with a different product or dose rates. You can use this management zone then to help you analyze the results throughout the season. And if I have a look at my power zone map, which is my 15-year historic average biomass, so an average view historically of what the biomass variation has been, I can see it's quite even. But if I look at the yield map, for example, from the previous season, I can actually see that I've got an area of the crop that is underperforming across on the right hand side. So I may choose to add a biodiversity plot to this field based on this yield map from the previous season. So what I can do is add an additional zone, and I can see where my yield is dropping, and I'm seeing an area of lower productivity. So what I can then do is draw a biodiversity window onto this field, which will then be saved, and I can take it into consideration with any applications that I'm then making. So I can save this zone as a biodiversity window and make sure it's permanently active. Great, so now you can see I have 2 management zones on this field. So what I can now do with the management zones is go back to the home page, the status page, and then go to the analytics tab. I can select the field which I've been working with, which is Barnfield, and I can then analyze my different field data layers. And you can also upload different field data layers as well. So I can upload a variable seeding map, for example, here. I can upload a yield map for my combine, or it could be a variable application map for fungicide, for example. I've actually already uploaded a yield map, so let's open this one up again, and you can see actually by looking at this data in a bit more detail that it's been split up into 5 zones, and on the lowest zone there's yields as low as 1 ton per hectare, but it's going as high as 6 tons per hectare. I think this was obviously a difficult season with a crop that was drilled late in the 2019-2020 season, and that's reflected in the yield that we can see here. What I can then do in the analytics tab at the top left is I can bring in my management zones, which I've already set. So I can bring in my trial tramline, for example, and then I can then analyze that tramline in more detail and see what the average yield is, and compare that to the overall average yield of that field. So I can see it's 4.6 tons per hectare. So as well as using these management zones, I can compare my maps side by side. So in this example, you can see my screen is now split up into 2. I've got my yield map on the left-hand side, and what I can actually do is bring my power zone map, which, as I've said, is the historical biomass average, and I can put that on the right-hand side and directly compare them side by side. But you may choose to do this with your variable seeding map, for example, or a variable application map. Great, so now I'll go back to the slides. Yeah, so something else that I wanted to share with you, which is really exciting and a really nice example of how data can support a grower, is a tool that's in development actually with xarvio. And it's not in the system today, but we're hoping to launch this in the UK next year. And this is a tool around using buffer zones. And this buffer zone feature will make crop protection applications for products with aquatic buffer zones as easy as possible. So how it will work is the user enters information such as the product, the dose rates, and the nozzle type. And then xarvio and the xarvio team and knowledge brings in additional information and data around buffer zone regulation and also data layers to show where the closest water courses are and if there's any water courses around your field. And then the user will then receive a map for their application where you can see the buffer zones on it. So for example, if you look on the right hand side, you can see this flat rate application map, but the yellow is indicating where the buffer zones are. So then the user can take this map and plug it into their terminal, and the sprayer nozzles will then automatically switch off when traveling over these buffer zone areas. So we're really excited by this new feature, as it will help you to apply products with aquatic buffer zones as easy as possible. So moving on, coming to the end now. So just to take a bit of a sidestep, so now just looking at the other xarvio products in the UK. So we've just been looking at everything within xarvio Field Manager. So now to look at the xarvio Scouting app. So the xarvio Scouting app is a free to download app on your phone that helps you with a whole range of different activities whilst walking your crop, all through taking a picture with your smartphone. So the app is used by over 3.5 million people worldwide, and you can see that on this slide. The app offers 6 key components, and it's a great tool to monitor diseases, pests, and weeds. So just to talk about some examples, if you're walking your crop and you see a weed emerging in your crop and you're not quite sure what it is, and you want help identifying it, you can take a picture of the weed with the Scouting app on your smartphone, and then the Scouting app will take this picture and come back with a suggestion with what it thinks the weed is. And how it does this is it takes this picture that you've taken and uses a self-learning algorithm and compares this picture to a big database of other similar pictures and suggests to you what it is. This also works in a very similar way for the disease recognition functionality. So if there's a disease that you can see in your crop and you're not quite sure what it is, again, you can take a picture and the Scouting app will help you to recognize it and suggest what it is. You can then share this picture and results with other people. It might be your agronomist, for example, and you can share them using the Scouting app as well. There's other functionalities in here as well, looking at analysing the emergence of your crop and also analysing the affected area of a damaged crop as well. But what I want to talk about in a bit more detail is the yellow trap analysis functionality. And so this is using a yellow water pan, and you might be using this on your own farm with oilseed rape, where you can use the yellow water trap to help you estimate and understand the insect pressure around the autumn time, around drilling, but also in the spring just before flowering. So what you can do is put out these yellow water traps in your crop, and you'll see insects you see insects in this trap, and this functionality will help you to count and identify these insects, whether it's pollen beetle or stem weevil in the spring, or looking at cabbage stem flea beetle in the autumn. It'll help you to count and identify them, like I said, but also you can quickly see and document whether you're at a threshold level and whether an application is needed. And you can then also link these results from scouting into the field manager system. And you can, for example, allocate these results from scouting to a field of oilseed rape in the field manager system. So you can keep a record of everything all in one place. So just to talk about that link in a bit more detail. So there's an integration with scouting and field manager, whereby if you're using the same login credentials on both systems, any images and any results that you gather with the scouting app will automatically be displayed on the field manager system. And you can see in this example, I'm filtering for leaf damage images. And you can then assign these results and images to different fields and through different tasks. So you can use the two systems together to manage what you're observing in your field and keep a record of it. Great, well, thanks for listening to me today, everyone. And I'll now hand you over to Bjorn, who is based in Germany, and he heads up all the agronomy topics for xarvio Global, for the xarvio Global business. So it's really great that we have him here today speaking. And Bjorn is going to talk about how xarvio uses data to drive the agronomic decision engine and provide and how that provides actionable insights and alerts for our users. So thank you.
I'm very pleased to share with you here in the next minutes what we think about data, what data means in the context of digital farming, and we will look into various aspects, and I hope that I will bring not only information but also trigger some questions from your end. Let me start to explain and guide you here through the first slide. It shows our strategy on one page. You see when we think about our offerings in digital farming, it always starts with data. We want to provide growers with agronomic insights and alerts at the end of the day. But to do so, we first need to better understand what is really happening locally on their fields, what is happening on their farms. And for doing so, we use a lot of data sources like satellites, weather information, but also information the farmer provide to us with, for example, the scouting app, which will be explained later on. And all these type of sensors are then used, and we bring this together in something we call our agronomic decision engine. It's not really only one engine, but it's at the end of the day a container of many rules which are connected but help us to make decisions. And these decisions are then in a third step translated into actions, so to help farmers field specific and field zone specific to do the right things. And what is very important for me, because I also have still my own farm and have a farming background, to make these kind of strategy very successful and to have beneficial solutions for the growers, we need to establish data relationship with the growers. Next slide, please. If you see this slide, don't get scared by the flow chart on the right-hand side, but I would quickly like to explain how our solutions are developed and what input is needed from the growers to have a great output. We, at a season start, ask the growers to enter only very few information, and often this information has been digitalized beforehand, is used in other contexts, and is normally very easy available for a grower. So we speak here about, for example, field boundaries. We need to have some insights here regarding the crop. So what crop is he growing? Is this a wheat, barley, oilseed rape field, and so on? We want to understand the yield expectation, because this is driving also quite some decisions a farmer needs then to make throughout the season. The variety information matters quite a lot, and planting dates, and as well in some cases management practices are demanded, and we ask for this information to simply make the models highly precise. Once a farmer wants to become our customer, is using our systems and solutions, once he has entered this kind of information, then you see on the right-hand side that we bring in a lot of data from our end. There's a lot of publicly available information. We merge it with satellite information. We merge it with soil layer, which are publicly available. We merge it with high density weather information for each and every field. And this is then mixed with our modeling competence. And throughout the season, then we can give here various insights on timing, on zone spray features, which we will hear about later on. But the foundation, again, is it's without this kind of data relationship and data partnership at the starting point, without this initial information, we can also not provide a great solution. But once we form this kind of partnership, we believe great agronomic insights can be delivered to growers. Next slide, please. I will not spend a lot of time on this slide, but I want also to raise the awareness that when we work with farmers, that has also a lot to do with trust. And if we have a trustful relationship, in many markets, we get the information you have seen on the previous slide from the farmers, and then we build on it. When we use our products, we have various data dimensions we bring together. I shared that already on the previous slide a bit. What is very important for me is that whenever a grower decides not to continue to work with our tools, and in case he wants to opt out, all his data will be deleted. So all personal data, all grower-specific data, field-specific data will be deleted simply because we can do so. So when we started to build our system, we have data buckets, and technically we are capable to do so. And in many markets, we see that farmers really appreciate this kind of capability, which is not normal. Let me say it like that. But I think this is one of our key beliefs, that an opt-out needs to be given and also technically needs to be executable. Next slide, please. I also would like to speak briefly about data visualization and analytical tools. We all have the experience that already today there is a lot of data already on the farm. So digitalization in agriculture has not started 2-3 years ago. The first yield maps are since 10 years on, let's say, more innovative farms. This information is available. But what is still lacking in many cases are good tools to really make full use of this data. And we believe that with our products, we offer growers a great opportunity to enhance in terms of analytical skills. We provide in our products opportunities to upload data layers they already have on the farm. You see here on the right-hand side an example of uploading a yield map. And we enable with a field match also the grower to then do their own analysis based on the data they bring in. We do not have standardized analytics here. The grower is really in the driver's seat, and he can, based on or depending on the data layers he is bringing to the tool, he then can also run his own analysis and can create more insights. I think this is a very strong feature to help also farmers to grow into digitalization, to also grow their understanding of data, in the same moment having an opportunity to do this in a very lean and simple way. So no need to to create dozens of folders, copy and paste information. The upload features are very intuitive to use. And again, once the farmer opts out, all this information is also deleted. But he can really create additional value by using here these analytical features. I'm coming a bit closer to the end of my presentation. I want to share with you that what really makes a difference in a digital farming company is to have a data-driven mindset. I want to explain that with you here with the example of how we develop models. In the past 10, 15 years ago, I think also many of you have observed there are expert models which help you to better understand, is there a risk for septoria, yes or no? Is there potentially a high risk for yellow rust, brown rust? So this was also existing more than a decade ago. But I think what is now changing with the new abilities to analyze data and bring data together and use them, this allows totally new ways of improving models. So you see here all our models we are running. We run simulation based on data we collect from trials, data we collect from farmer observations, also from observations our organization is capturing in the field. And you see that more than 130,000 simulations have been done on models so far. And we have clear KPIs to evaluate the performance of our model. So we look in the mean average error of a model. We look whether the model is performing, whether it's acceptable or whether it's not accurate enough. Also, we use confusion matrix information to then really say, hey, where do we maybe have also still maybe issues with a model, and if an error occurs, we have a clear understanding to differentiate between false positive and false negative events, so that we can also continue to further improve. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that the model has a high quality, and of course we want to avoid that we indicate a risk and then trigger an application although there is no risk and there is no disease event, for example. And this is the most sensitive area because it would lead to an application that is not necessary. And this is a huge watch out in our models. That's clearly something we want to avoid. And at the end of the day, also the models and the data are compared with the model output coming from our rule engine, which you also see here noted on the slide. So high efforts to ensure superior model performance.
Great, thank you, Bjorn, and thank you, Luke, as well for your presentation. Those of you that are eagle-eyed perhaps noted that Bjorn's presentation wasn't done live. We pre-recorded that last week because Bjorn is a busy guy, but delighted that he's here live with us now for the Q&A along with Luke. So please do post your questions into the chat and we'll look to answer those as we go through. We've also had a good number of pre-submitted questions from those joining and registering ahead of the event. So I think we can dive straight into some of those pre-submitted questions, and perhaps a good one to start with, because I think it follows on quite nicely from your last slide there, Bjorn, is around spray timer and around our spray timer models and alerts, and just a question around how accurate they are. You know, how accurate are our models, and how accurate can they ever become, if you like, with time and effort?
Yeah, I would say they are pretty accurate. So we use a model library which has been built 20 years ago. So the expert models we have, they have already an inbuilt experience of these 20 years, and the models have been also built not only specifically in one country and then are brought to another country, but we also put a lot of efforts in maintaining the models year by year. So for example, The models in UK, we run very specific trials, and we collect data. We recalibrate the data based also on local observation, and of course also here from the broader BASF network, together with the R&D organization, we collaborate to get more data in, and this then also allows us here combining expert models with data-driven approaches to reach a very high quality in the given country, in the given regions.
Great. I think it's amazing how we can build that field-specific information. So, you know, taking into account obviously the location and the weather that's going over it, the seeding date, the variety, you know, these user inputs, I guess, are taken in by xarvio and then all pulled together in that quite complex flow diagram that you had in your slides to really give, you know, field-specific, situation-specific outcomes.
Exactly, and what we try for our users and customers, we try to make it very simple. Most of the entries you're doing, and you mentioned a couple of them, like the variety information, the yield expectation, also the previous crop or management practices, they are more or less intuitively entered into the system. They can also be even coming from other management systems, for example, via API. And this helps us to really simplify the overall interaction with our solutions, but in the same moment, we use the information coming from the farmer, we blend it with our additional insights, and this is resulting in a very field-specific model outcome, which is required because we have the ambition to help here really the farmers throughout the season to be really in the right moment in the field with an application.
We've had some good feedback actually, Bjorn, from last season, which was quite an interesting season in the UK because it was very dry. But feedback from users last year was that, you know, the models were pretty accurate. You know, looking at growth stage, looking at some of the disease risks. You know, interestingly, last year we saw that, you know, at the kind of T1 time where it was a little bit drier and perhaps a slightly lower disease risk, some of the xarvio alerts were happening a little bit later, so a slightly delayed application, which is, I guess, how it works. So it can be a little bit different from our traditional kind of leaf layer timings that we're used to in the UK, but it really is reacting to the pressures that it's seeing on that field and that situation.
Absolutely, and what we aim with our models is really we want to come very close to the point of infection where you really have the biggest risk that then a disease is spreading, and we have the experience and also the competence here to model this state very exactly, and this is of course we are no longer really have this kind of calendar applications. Also a pure BBCH stage driven application is also not in our favor. But of course, also BBCH stages play an important role because later on this has also then an impact what products to choose and so on. And also here we have, just to mention this, we have quite some strong models. So simply for the phenology, so even without going into the field, we have here feedback from the farmers that our models are very accurate for the BBCH stages, and that the error is also here technically from our side, the error is 2 or 3 days maximum, which is really outstanding quality for these kind of models. Let's not forget, we still speak about models and we speak about nature and individual situations. Still challenges, but I think we're doing well and on the right track here to help growers to get more accurate information here.
Yeah, just to
go on then, Luke.
Sorry, Louis. Just to add in there, of course, with the different insights and agronomic actions that xarvio provides, including the spray timer feature, you know, these should really be used as part of the wider decision-making process on farm. So between the farm manager, the agronomist, for example, Now, the models can't replace boots on the ground, but you can get the most out of the technology by working with it and inputting your observations throughout the season, and your crop protection applications as well. So the models are reflecting exactly what's going on in your field as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. You know, these models are to interact with, aren't they? And you can put observations and stuff that you're seeing in, ground truth points, and I agree with you, Luke. I think that's the best way to get the most from these kind of systems is to work with them. Perhaps moving on, sticking on the kind of modelling theme, but a questions come in around some of the insect type models, particularly for aphids. With the loss of neonicotinoid seed dressings, vector-borne diseases like BYDV potentially becoming an increasing problem. Do we at xarvio have any plans to introduce pest alerts in cereals, Bjorn?
We have a few projects here in our development pipeline. Modeling insects is more tricky because the insects move in the field. They are attracted by the surroundings over winter in periods where the crop is not on the field. So these kind of modeling activities are really highly sophisticated. In the same moment, we look currently in also here sensor technology, which might help to get more, let's say, location-specific information, migration information more specifically, even technology to kind of see pests that kind of entering a field is under observation. So nothing in the field manager today for aphids, but for sure also knowing the damage they can cause. It's clearly a part of our development pipeline and looking into it.
Yeah, I guess one thing we do have in the field manager today is obviously oilseed rape pest models, don't we? For pollen beetle, for seed weevil, and like you say, I guess with these models, you're not definitely saying that there are pests there. We're saying that the conditions are right for pests to be migrating and multiplying in that crop, and you should go and check and see. So if you do get a red alert for pollen beetle, for example, in your oilseed rape, yeah, it's a sign to kind of go and check. And you also saw in Luke's presentation, some of these yellow traps that work with the xarvio scouting tool, where you can simply check thresholds and use the image recognition technology there with scouting to to have a look at how many insect pests you have in your oilseed rape. And I do have a couple of these traps going spare, so if any of you on the call are interested in monitoring your oilseed rape for pests this spring, then do get in touch with Luke or I and we can send those out to you. Perhaps moving on as time is moving on as well, we had a couple of questions around collaboration and partnerships, and maybe on the sensor topic. A question from a viewer called Charles. What are the plans to extend the xarvio platform to accept data from external sources, e.g. handheld sensors?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Within our strategy, we have clearly the ambition to be open with our platform. We have for everyone publicly available our APIs if someone wants to, let's say, technically integrate to our platform. And also we have many examples already in several countries where we have, for example, opportunities already realized to, for example, integrate weather data. So local weather stations on your farm can be integrated, can be linked to the xarvio Field Manager, and then you can run even the models with your local weather. But please ensure that the model that your weather station is really well calibrated and not behind a building or things like that. So this is feasible. I see also here more and more sensors being integrated, being sensors who sense the soil. We have also here partnerships ongoing to, for example, integrate EC soil maps. All sorts of kind of sensor data are valuable for us, and we want to provide the opportunity that whenever farmers have these kind of devices, if they have certain data sets at hand, that they can also, in a very simple way, upload this information to the system, work with the data, merge the data, and for example, also use the analytical features we have in the Field Manager to review this data and draw your own conclusions. So we're definitely working here towards more partnering, integrating more sensors. It's of course takes some time to negotiate also here with then other commercial partners, but I think we are on a good track also here in UK with discussions ongoing.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bjorn. It's a common question actually, and I think you've kind of addressed it there around, different platforms, different systems. From a user's perspective, from a farmer's perspective, double keying and double typing information is always a challenge. So it's good that that's one that we're working on and looking to join things up a little bit more in the future. Perhaps moving on to analytics, and one for you, Luke. I think actually both you and Bjorn mentioned the analytics feature in your presentations. What kind of use cases, Luke, do you think you could use the analytics feature for? What kind of things could you be looking at from a farmer's perspective?
Yeah, no, thanks, Louis. And like you say, the analytics functionality it's coming on leaps and bounds with lots of improvements constantly happening there, and it's a really useful and interesting functionality. In terms of use cases, well, I can think of two off the top of my head. Firstly, for trials work. So, for example, if you're someone that likes to do a lot of their own trials on their own fields, because they know that they have a very unique situation, really to try and understand how different application strategies are affecting your productivity, and you might be doing trials on maybe it's timing or different dose rates of different products. You can very easily put in these trials, the tramlines, into the analytics function by using the management zones, like I showed you. And then you can overlay these management zones with various different field maps. So, the obvious one being your yield map, to then compare the average yield, looking at the management zones to compare it to the rest of the field. But you could also be looking at the reviewing, for example, a variable rate application map or a variable seeding map with the management zones to review what you've been doing in that trial. And a second one being looking at potentially putting areas of your field into different stewardship schemes or biodiversity plots. So you can use the analytics function to assess the productivity of different areas of your field to choose whether you want to kind of change the use of different areas of the field. But then also within the analytics, you can directly compare your different field maps as well. So there's a whole range of different ways to explore and really dive into the data and the field layers there.
Great, thanks, Luke. And I guess maybe a broader question, maybe for you, Bjorn. This was in relation to the buffer zones feature that Luke mentioned in his presentation, but a question around, are these kind of features just available for BASF products or for all products in the marketplace? Are we as xarvio making a holistic solution for all, or is it more in line with?
Thanks for this question, Luis. So we clearly have the ambition to provide here solutions to growers, and growers do not only work with BASF products, nor do they work only with competitor products. They often have to make the best choice for a certain decision, and so therefore we also enable here competitor products if the information is publicly available, for example, which is the case for the buffer zones. So we can offer here a more holistic also user experience, which is very important for us, because we are aware how farmers really have to work. It's not only one specific company portfolio they are dealing with.
Great, thank you. And Luke, maybe one final question to end the Q&A here to you, which is about how can farmers access the spray timer functionality and the other functionality we have within the tool. yeah, where do they find it? You know, do they have to, you know, is there a payment for it? Where does this sit?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Louis. I can give a bit of an overview around the pricing and how to use these different bits of functionality. I think we've been speaking a lot about the spray timer tool and the modeling there. But just to say, even with the basic free access level of Field Manager, so you've just created an account and you haven't paid anything, on 2 of your fields, you'll have the spray timer unlocked for free. So if you just wanted to try spray timer on 2 of your fields for free, you can do that. And then if you wanted to unlock more functionality on more of your fields, you can then access the web shop within the Field Manager system on the web-based version. And then you can unlock the Pro package, which costs £200 per year per farm, and that provides a whole range of things like the biomass map imagery, and also looking at some variable rate application maps for all of your fields. But then if you wanted to unlock the spray timer functionality and the data modeling across all of your fields, that would be under the premium package, which is a cost of £500 per farm per year, and that will give you these alerts across all of your fields, and also bring in variable rate application maps for crop protection as well, based on the biomass map imagery in the system.
Great. So I guess the message is, go and get yourself a xarvio account, have a go with the basic mode on 2 free fields for free, and then if you like what you're seeing, then hopefully unlock for the whole farm, either the Pro or the Premium.
Exactly.
Great, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Bjorn, for today's session, and thank you all for joining. Just to wrap up, we have basis and Neroso points available for joining this morning. Basis points are on the screen now, and Neroso points are coming to us in the days ahead, and we'll send an email out. So if you're looking to collect Neroso points, we can do that. This is our 3rd xarvio webinar, and probably the final xarvio webinar for a couple of months. We might be back in the summer to talk about some of the functionality coming into the autumn. But do encourage you to watch back the previous webinars on VRA and the xarvio technology more generally. So do have another watch there. And you know, if you missed any of this morning's webinar, of course you can also join and rewatch in the catch-up section too. The next webinar at the BASF Virtual Farm is in a couple of weeks' time, and it's not a webinar, it's a funginar. So do join my colleagues on the 8th of April to discuss barley fungicides and disease control then. But for now, I wish you all a very pleasant day. Thank you again for joining, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.